In the ever-evolving landscape of survival games, God Save Birmingham emerges as a bold and ambitious title that dares to reimagine the zombie apocalypse in a setting rarely explored, 14th century Birmingham, England. Developed by Ocean Drive Studio, a Korean-based team with a passion for blending historical accuracy with modern gaming mechanics, and published by Kakao Games. Set in the year 1359, the game transports players to a meticulously recreated medieval market town ravaged by an undead plague, where survival hinges on resource management, strategic combat, and navigating a world steeped in historical detail. While still in its developmental infancy, God Save Birmingham offers a tantalizing glimpse into a unique survival experience, though its current state has sparked both excitement and skepticism among players and critics alike. The setting of God Save Birmingham is one of its most compelling features. The game is set in Birmingham during the mid-14th century, a time when the city was a modest but thriving market town. Ocean Drive Studio has painstakingly recreated this historical backdrop, incorporating iconic locations such as bustling markets, burgage plots, smithies, taverns, and the Church of St. Martin in the Bullring. These environments are not mere set pieces but integral to the gameplay, as players must scavenge for resources and use the terrain to their advantage. In the early access version, only about 1/4 of the planned town is accessible, but the developers have promised a fully realized city in the final release, complete with additional areas and a richer sense of immersion. This commitment to historical accuracy sets the game apart, grounding the fantastical zombie outbreak in a world that feels authentic and lived in, from the cobblestone streets to the rustic interiors of medieval homes. Gameplay in God Save Birmingham centers on survival in a hostile environment. Players assume the role of a lone survivor, tasked with managing essential needs such as food, water, shelter, bandages, and light sources. Unlike modern zombie games that rely on firearms, this title embraces its medieval setting, equipping players with weapons like pitchforks, hatchets, great swords, and halberds. These tools require skill and precision, thanks to the game's aim-based strike system and procedural grappling mechanics, which allow for dynamic interactions such as barricading doors, tripping enemies, or severing zombie limbs to weaken them. The physics-based combat adds a layer of realism and strategy, making each encounter a tense and calculated affair. Nighttime introduces additional challenges, with impaired visibility and the need for warmth and stamina conservation. Zombies may appear to sleep during these hours, but approaching them can trigger sudden aggression, adding an element of unpredictability to the survival experience. The early access version of God Save Birmingham focuses on a sandbox mode, where randomized starting locations, item placements, and enemy positions ensure that each playthrough feels distinct. This mode allows players to explore the town, scavenge for resources, and test their survival skills against hordes of zombies, some of which are uniquely challenging, such as former knights or blacksmiths who wield greater strength. However, the game's full potential is yet to be realized. Ocean Drive Studio has outlined plans to expand the playable area to encompass the entire town, introduce additional playable characters with unique gameplay styles and objectives, and implement a narrative-driven campaign mode featuring scripted moments, collectibles, and an emotional storyline. These additions promise to elevate the game beyond its current sandbox framework, offering a more structured and engaging experience. As of May 2025, God Save Birmingham has garnered mixed reactions from players and critics, particularly following hands-on previews at events like PAX East 2025. Some players, as noted in a Game Rant preview, found the gameplay loop confusing and unsatisfying, citing difficulties in locating usable items and the overwhelming presence of zombies, which made progression feel unrewarding. One reviewer described dying multiple times while attempting to reach the Church of St. Martin, frustrated by the inability to equip certain items and the lack of a clear sense of purpose. Conversely, a Boss Rush Network preview praised the game's thrilling resource management and physics-based combat, noting that the experience felt intuitive after initial guidance and offered a unique perspective on the zombie genre. These contrasting impressions underscore the game's current pre-alpha state, with the early access build still undergoing refinement. The game's trailers, particularly the gameplay reveal shared on YouTube during Gamescom 2024, have also sparked debate. The footage showcases improved textures, fluid animations, and a slower, more deliberate pace, drawing comparisons to high-budget titles like The Last of Us. However, some critics, as reported by Vice, have expressed skepticism, likening the polished trailers to the infamous The Day Before, a game that promised much but failed to deliver. This comparison raises concerns about whether God Save Birmingham can live up to its ambitious vision, particularly given its small development team and the complexity of its promised features. Ocean Drive Studio is acutely aware of these challenges and has embraced the early access model to refine the game based on player feedback. In a blog post dated January 23, 2025, on their official website, the developers outlined their vision for God Save Birmingham, emphasizing their goal to create a challenging survival game that balances historical detail with engaging gameplay. They plan to showcase the game at various events, release regular updates, and engage with the community to shape its development. The early access phase is expected to last approximately 1 to 2 years, during which the team will expand the town, introduce new characters, and develop the campaign mode. This commitment to community-driven development is encouraging, suggesting that the game's rough edges may be smoothed out over time. The game's technical requirements reflect its ambitious scope. The minimum system specifications include a Windows 10 or 11x64 operating system, an Intel Core i7-7700K or AMD Ryzen 5 1600X processor, 16GB of RAM, and an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1066GB or AMD Radeon RX 588GB graphics card with 20GB of SSD storage. For a recommended experience, players will need an Intel Core i7-11700 or AMD Ryzen 7 5800X processor, 32GB of RAM, and an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3070 Ti 8GB or AMD Radeon RX 6800 XT 12GB graphics card. These requirements indicate that the game demands significant hardware to deliver its detailed visuals and physics-based mechanics, aligning with its high-quality presentation. Looking ahead, God Save Birmingham has the potential to carve out a unique niche in the survival genre. Its medieval setting, combined with physics-based gameplay and commitment to historical accuracy, sets it apart from contemporaries like The Forest or 7 Days to Die. The promise of a larger town, additional characters, and a narrative-driven campaign mode suggests a rich and varied experience in the making. However, the game's success will depend on Ocean Drive Studios' ability to address current shortcomings, such as the bare-bones gameplay loop and item interaction issues, while delivering on the ambitious promises showcased in its trailers. For players intrigued by the concept of a medieval zombie survival game, God Save Birmingham is worth exploring in its early access phase, particularly for those who enjoy contributing to a game's development through feedback. However, for those seeking a polished experience, it may be prudent to wait for the full release, expected in 2026 or 2027, when the game's vision is more fully realized. With its unique premise and dedicated development team, God Save Birmingham has the potential to become a standout title, provided it can navigate the challenges of early access and deliver on its lofty ambitions.